Again, my message and my plea will always be about testing and test numbers in New South Wales. I'm urging again New South Wales to come out and be tested. As you've seen over the last few days, where there are some level of concern in some of our cases. Last night there was 26,112 tests, so thank you for coming out, but that number still is on the low side. We did hit the 30,000 mark a couple of days ago, and I'm encouraging New South Wales to keep coming out and get tested. It is very important that we do so. I've spoken about it consistently, about how important it is in relation for governments to make decisions, and today my plea again at the end of this week, to continue the testing over the weekend, to continue to get tested, regardless of the symptoms, mild or not. If you've been tested before but you're not sure, please come out and get tested, and I will continue to say that message. Out of the 26,112 tests last night, there were 11 cases. Out of the 11, 7 were overseas acquired and 4 were locally acquired. 2 were close contacts of the Barilaro cluster, 1 a close contact of the Croydon cluster, and the final one was in relation to the individual that we spoke about yesterday connected to the Avalon cluster. So recapping, 11 cases overnight up to 8 p.m. last night, 7 overseas and 4 locally acquired. Of course, the breaking news this morning is Queensland Brisbane going into lockdown. And what does that mean for New South Wales? Of course, our health officials have been working with our Queensland counterparts to understand exactly what has occurred with the breach in quarantine, the actual strain itself, and what we can do. Now, I'm sure today there'll be people calling on New South Wales to close its border to Queensland. Now, at no point during this pandemic have we ever had a knee-jerk reaction or have treated the border like a light switch. You know, what we do is work with our counterpart, offer support, because whatever happens in Queensland impacts what happens in New South Wales or any other state. And we are all working together for the benefit of Australians and citizens of this nation. But in line with that, can I say, as 6 p.m. tonight, and I will read the areas, Queensland will go into lockdown for areas of Brisbane, Logan, Ipswich, Moreton and Redlands, and that's over 6 p.m. tonight. But from a New South Wales perspective, by the end of this press conference this morning, by lunchtime, what we will be saying is clear, that if you are in the midst of travelling from Brisbane as we speak into New South Wales and you come from those areas, we expect you to abide by the isolation rules that would have applied to you if you were in Brisbane. If you visited Brisbane and you're on your way to New South Wales, again, those isolation rules will apply to you. Now, if you are already in New South Wales and you've travelled to New South Wales from those locations, there is a sense of retrospectivity here, since, of course, 12:01 a.m. on the 2nd of January, we expect you to again stay isolated. Now, I will get Dr. Kerry Chan to elaborate further on that, but it is very, very important to understand that we won't be locking down the border, but we are going to be applying the same level of restrictions to those that are either coming or are here in New South Wales that have come from those areas. We also must, I want to announce today that we have now put in place the same safeguards that we had for the test match in relation to mask wearing and all those other safeguards will now apply to the A-League for the rest of the month to assure the people of Newcastle with the game that's going to occur in Newcastle, but for all those major sporting events with the A-League this month, the same safeguards that we've got in place for the tests that we saw commence yesterday will now apply to everybody in that space. I'll also, again, want to stress that while test numbers are low, it still gives us some level of confidence in relation to what is occurring in this state. And I'm just urging people to please work with the government. The more we do together, the more that we are confident in decision making. I will also refer back to Minister Hazzard to talk about the Northern Zone restrictions and the Northern Beaches in relation to those restrictions shortly. So with that, again, I'm urging everybody to just do the right thing, especially if you are visiting from Brisbane, if you are already in this state, if you're captured by the retrospectivity that we're saying that goes back to the 2nd of January and you are in this state, or if you're in midst of travel, I urge you again to do the right thing and follow the rules. That is how we've beat and been able to stay in front of this COVID plan. Now, for those that will be flying in, the same sort of arrangements at airports as we had for South Australia, where we'll be asking people as they come off those flights for their information, because if something does occur, it is going to be very important that we'll be able to respond quickly in relation to that. If you are driving over the border, there isn't going to be some border closure, as I've indicated, but please try and document exactly your travel itinerary so that if, in case something occurs and we get in touch, that you are able to accurately give us your itinerary to help us minimise any impacts going forward. Again, I urge the public here in New South Wales to do the right thing, follow the rules and work with the government and our health officials.